Something is wrong at Heartland. Lyndy thought she was alone, that the farmhouse was quiet and safe. But the moment she stepped inside, she felt a presence, a shadow, someone breathing just beyond her view. Heartland has always been a place of peace, of family, of trust. But today, everything feels different. Someone is in the house with Lyndy, and no one knows who it is or why they are there. Every step she takes, every sound she hears raises more questions. Who is this person hiding in her home? A friend? A stranger? Or someone who means her harm? Stay close, because the truth is closer than she thinks. It will shock everyone at Heartland. The sun was slowly disappearing behind the hills, casting long shadows across Heartland's rolling fields. The wind whispered through the tall grass, carrying the faint scent of horses and hay. Lyndy had spent the day riding, enjoying the calm and quiet that the ranch usually offered. But as she approached the farmhouse, a strange unease settled in. Her chest, something felt off. The front door, usually secure and welcoming, looked slightly ajar. She frowned, stepping closer. The wooden boards creaked under her boots, and she froze, listening. There was no one around, just the distant call of a horse and the rustle of the trees as she pushed the door open. The familiar smell of home should have comforted her. Instead, it made her senses sharpen. The living room was dimly lit by the fading sunlight through the windows, and everything looked in place at first glance. But then her eyes caught something a small picture frame knocked. Over on the floor, the cushions on the sofa slightly shifted, as if someone had been there recently. Lyndy's heart began to race. Her hand went to the doorknob, gripping it tightly. Was it possible someone had entered while she was away? She moved cautiously into the house, each step measured, soft. The sound of her boots against the wooden floor echoed unnaturally loud in the empty room. Her eyes scanned every corner, every shadow, trying to find the source of the unease. She could almost hear the house breathing with her, each creak and groan of the wooden floorboards amplifying the tension. Something or someone had been here. She wasn't imagining it. The air felt heavy, thick, with an unknown presence that made her skin prickle. Lyndy's gaze shifted to the hallway leading to the bedrooms. The light was fading fast, and shadows began to stretch along the walls like dark fingers. She stepped toward the hallway, her ears straining for any sound. Then she heard a soft shuffle, too deliberate to be the wind. Her breath caught in her throat, and she froze mid-step. Every instinct screamed for her to turn and run, but her curiosity, her courage, and her need to know who was there held her in place. She crept forward, moving silently, keeping her eyes on the dim corners. The sound came again. Closer this time, a faint scraping that made her pulse quicken. Lyndy reached the living room doorway and glanced toward the staircase. It was empty. No one. And yet the feeling of being watched pressed down on her. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her shaking hands. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was it a thief? A neighbor? Someone from her past coming back for reasons she couldn't yet understand? Every part of the house seemed to hold a secret now. The familiar furniture, the walls lined with family. Photos, the kitchen that usually smelled of fresh bread and coffee, all of it felt foreign, as if the home itself had turned against her. Lyndy's heart pounded, echoing in her ears as she moved cautiously toward the living room again. Her eyes scanned every shadow, every doorway, every corner, searching for a sign. Any clue that would tell her who or what was in the house. The tension was unbearable, but she could not stop. Someone was here, and she had to find out why. Lyndy's eyes darted across the living room, catching every movement or the illusion of movement within the dim shadows. She noticed the faintest things first. A chair slightly pulled out from the table. A curtain that had shifted even though the wind outside had died down. And a coffee mug, not her own, sitting on the counter as if someone had left it behind. Her mind raced. She knew Heartland inside out. Yet these subtle changes made the house feel like a stranger's. Every small detail screamed that she was not alone. She took a careful step forward, her boots barely making a sound on the wooden floor. Her heart hammered, but she forced herself to stay calm. She thought of the people she trusted, the family, the neighbors. the friends who had been by her side, but none of them should be here at this hour. Her hands tightened around the edge of the counter, and she glanced toward the hallway. A shadow moved just beyond the kitchen doorway, flickering against the wall. She froze, holding her breath. Her first instinct was to call out, to demand whoever it was to reveal themselves. But the voice in her head whispered caution. Someone in the house might not be friendly. She crept closer to the hallway, each step deliberate, scanning the walls, the corners, the floor. Her eyes caught a set of footprints on the dusty floorboards, small, hurried, not like any of the usual farmhands or visitors. They led from the back of the house toward the living room, and then stopped. Lyndy's pulse quickened. The prints ended as abruptly as they had begun, leaving no trace of who might have been there or where they went. She felt a shiver run down her spine. A soft sound reached her ears, a faint tap, like fingernails brushing against wood, coming from upstairs. She froze again, listening intently. The house, which had always been comforting and familiar, now felt alive with secrets. Lyndy's mind swirled with possibilities. Could it be someone lost? Someone looking for help? Or someone with a plan to hurt her? She couldn't tell. The idea that someone had entered her home without warning was terrifying, and yet she needed to know the truth. Slowly, she stepped into the hallway leading upstairs, each movement careful, measured. Her eyes were drawn to the shadows at the far end, where the stairwell met the ceiling, and there it was, a fleeting silhouette gone before she could get a clear look. Her heart skipped a beat. She wanted to scream, to run, but the need to uncover the mystery held her in place. She whispered to herself, barely audible, "Who's there?" The hallway swallowed her words, turning only silence and tension. Her attention shifted to the family photos on the wall, images of laughter, love, and peace that suddenly felt distant. She realized the intruder must have moved quickly yet, deliberately, touching nothing more than needed to unsettle her. Lyndy's suspicion grew stronger. She began mentally retracing her steps, trying to remember anyone coming or going that day. Nothing made sense. Whoever was in the house had skillfully hidden their presence, leaving only tiny, unsettling signs behind. The air felt heavier now, almost pressing against her chest. Each creak of the floorboards, each whisper of the wind through the cracks, and the windows made her flinch. She sensed movement again, faint but definite, coming from the back of the house near the study. Her instincts screamed to hide, yet curiosity pushed her forward. The question repeated in her mind: who is in the house with Lyndy? The answer seemed close, just out of reach, and the suspense made her pulse pound even harder. She reached the doorway to the study, pausing to catch her breath. Shadows stretched across the room, and everything was still, yet the feeling of being watched never left her. Something or someone was inside, waiting. Lyndy's suspicion had grown into certainty. She was not alone, and the truth was about to be revealed. But what awaited her behind that door could change everything she thought she knew about Heartland, and the people she trusted most. The study door creaked slightly as Lyndy inched closer, her fingers brushing the edge of the frame. The dim light inside barely revealed the outlines of furniture, but the shadows seemed to twist unnaturally, moving like they had a life of their own. She could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears, each beat echoing off the walls as if the house itself were alive and holding its breath. The air smelled faintly of something she couldn't identify, metallic and unfamiliar. It made her stomach twist with unease. She stepped into the room, slow and deliberate, her eyes scanning every corner. A desk lamp sat on, casting a circle of weak light across scattered papers. Yet nothing on the desk seemed disturbed, except for a small envelope lying face down, as though someone had left it for her to find. She bent down, hesitating before picking it up. The envelope was heavy in her hand, and the paper inside felt thick, almost deliberate. She flipped it over empty. Nothing. A chill ran down her spine. The envelope had been left as a taunt, a message that someone had been here, watching her, planning. A sound made her spin around, the soft scrape of footsteps across the floor above. They weren't random, they were slow, deliberate, coming closer to the stairwell. Lyndy held her breath, straining to listen, trying to pinpoint where the intruder was. The house, usually full of comforting creaks and familiar noises, now felt alien, hostile even. Every shadow in the corners of the room seemed deeper than it should, stretching like fingers reaching out to grab her. Lyndy's eyes fell on the window. Moonlight spilled in, illuminating a figure moving across the yard outside. For a moment, she thought it might be someone leaving, but the figure stopped, paused, and turned toward the house. Her chest tightened. Wherever it was knew she was. Inside, they were watching. Her mind raced through the possibilities. Could it be a thief? Someone with a grudge? Or a worse, a person from her past? Who had... Lyndy's eyes flicked from the shadowed corners of the study to the desk, then to the bookshelves lining the walls. Everything looked ordinary at first glance, but her instincts screamed that someone had been here, not just walking through, but watching, waiting, leaving subtle signs. She crouched slightly, scanning the floor. There it was, a faint scuff mark on the rug near the doorway, as if someone had dragged their feet, almost deliberately. She traced it with her eyes, heart hammering. It wasn't random, whoever was in the house wanted her to notice, to feel the tension, the fear. She moved cautiously toward the fireplace, eyes drawn to a small photograph lying face down. Picking it up, her fingers trembled. The photo was of the ranch of Heartland, but someone had scratched out the faces, leaving empty silhouettes. It was a warning, a message, a game. Her mind raced. This was no ordinary intruder. This was personal. Someone who knew the house, the family, and perhaps even her routines. The realization sent a shiver down her spine. A sudden noise behind her made her spin around. The hallway was empty. No one. Yet, she could feel a tan, unseen presence lingering. Just out of sight, soft scrape of floorboards, the faintest whisper of movement, every sound amplified in the quiet house. Lyndy's eyes darted to the stairs. The shadowy outline of a figure had appeared for just a second, then vanished into the darkness above. It wasn't just fear now, it was knowledge. Someone was still here, inside her home, and they were watching. Her every move? Lyndy's hands found the edge of a table, gripping it tightly. She had to think fast. She moved toward the kitchen, scanning for anything out of place. A cupboard door was slightly open, a trail of flowers scattered on the counter, as if someone had been there in haste. Her heart leaped into her throat. Each tiny clue painted a picture of deliberate intrusion. Whoever it was, they had been inside, observing, testing the boundaries, leaving breadcrumbs meant to unsettle her. Her gaze fell on a small note pinned to the bulletin board in the kitchen. It hadn't been there before. Written in jagged, hurried handwriting, it read, "I'm closer than you think. Don't turn around." Lyndy's breath caught. Her instinct screamed danger, yet her curiosity compelled her forward. The message was unmistakable. Someone had been inside, had left this warning, and was still somewhere in the house. Every nerve in her body screamed at her to run, but she stayed, eyes darting, trying to anticipate the next move of this unseen visitor. The house seemed to pulse around her, each shadow growing darker, each sound sharper. She could hear the faintest creak of a floorboard in the living room, a whisper of movement near the staircase, and the soft rustle of fabric, as if someone had brushed against the wall. She stopped, heart racing, listening. The intruder was close, maybe even just outside the doorway. The tension wrapped around her like a heavy blanket, suffocating yet electrifying. Then, out of nowhere, a photo on the wall tilted slightly, as if an invisible hand had nudged it. Lyndy froze, staring at it. This wasn't random anymore. Every sign, every subtle clue, was a deliberate game of cat and mouse. Someone was here, inside her home, and they wanted her to know it, but they also wanted her to discover them on their terms. The thought made her shiver. The mystery of who was in the house with Lyndy was no longer just a question. It was a challenge, and the stakes had never been higher. Lyndy's breathing grew shallow as she backed away from the wall. Ow. Her eyes locked on the tilted photo. She hadn't touched it. She knew that. The house felt smaller now, like the walls were slowly closing in on her. Every sound seemed louder, the soft buzz of the old light, the distant creak of the ceiling, even the quiet beat of her own heart. She took one careful step, then another, trying not to make a sound. That's when she heard it again. Breath. Not hers. Close. Too close. She turned slowly, scanning the living room. The curtains moved slightly, even though the windows were shut. A shadow slipped across the floor and disappeared behind the couch. Lyndy froze, her pulse racing. This was no longer a feeling or a guess. Someone was here with her, moving freely. Through the house, choosing when to be seen and when to hide. Her hands trembled as she reached for the edge of the table, steadying herself. Fear wrapped around her, but beneath it burned a need for answers. She took a step toward the couch, her voice barely a whisper. The words felt weak in the heavy air, swallowed by silence. For a moment, nothing happened, and the floorboard behind her creaked. Lyndy spun around just in time to see a figure retreat into the hallway, fast but careful, like they had practiced this before. Her heart nearly stopped. She had seen them just a glimpse, a shape, but it was real. Lyndy moved after them, every nerve screaming danger. The hallway felt endless, shadows stretching along the walls. The door at the end slowly swung shut on its own, clicking softly as it closed. That sound hit her harder than any noise before. It was calm, controlled. Whoever was here wasn't panicking. They were leading her somewhere. She stood still, staring at the closed door, her chest tight. The house was silent now, almost too quiet. No footsteps, no movement. Just the feeling that eyes were on her from the other side of the door. Her thoughts raced. Was this someone she knew? Someone who had been watching Heartland for a long time? Someone with unfinished business? Lyndy swallowed hard and took a step closer. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark glass of a nearby frame. Wide eyes, pale face, fear clearly written across it. This moment felt like a breaking point. Whatever was hiding in her house was done playing. The next move would change everything. She reached out, her fingers hovering inches from the doorknob. Her hand shook, but she didn't pull it away. Truth was right there, waiting on the other side. Whoever was in the house with Lyndy was about to be revealed, and nothing at Heartland would ever feel safe again. Lyndy's fingers finally closed around the cold doorknob. For a moment, she couldn't move. The silence pressed against her ears, thick and heavy, as if the house itself was waiting for her decision. Her heart pounded so hard, she was sure whoever stood on the other side could hear it. She took a slow breath, steadying herself, then turned the knob and pushed the door open. The room beyond was dark, lit only by a thin line of moonlight spilling through the window. At first, she saw nothing, no movement, no shape, just an empty room. Her chest tightened with confusion. Had she imagined it all? But then she noticed the window wide open. The curtains swayed gently, even though the night air was still. Someone had been standing there moments ago, someone close enough to feel her fear. A soft sound broke the silence behind her. Lyndy turned sharply, her breath catching. The hallway was no longer empty. Figures stood at the far end, half hidden by shadows. They didn't move. They didn't speak. They just stood there, watching her. The distance between them felt heavy, charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. Lyndy tried to speak, but her voice failed her. The figure took one slow step forward, then another. The sound of their boots against the floor echoed through the house, calm and controlled. This wasn't someone running away anymore. This was someone ready to be seen on their own terms. Lyndy's thoughts raced. The height, the stance, the familiar way they moved. Something about it tugged at her memory. This wasn't a stranger. Not completely. "Why are you here?" Lyndy finally whispered, her voice shaking. The figure stopped, still hidden in the low light. For a long moment, there was no answer. Then a quiet voice spoke her name, just once. Soft, familiar. The sound sent a chill through her body. Whoever this was, they knew her. They had always known her. The realization hit her harder than fear. This wasn't random. This wasn't a break-in. This was personal. The figure stepped slightly into the moonlight, enough for Lyndy to see the outline of their face, but not enough to recognize them fully. It was like the truth was being shown in pieces, carefully controlled. The house felt different now. Game of hiding was over, replaced by something far more dangerous in finished history. Lyndy stood frozen, caught between fear and recognition, knowing one thing for certain. Whoever had been in the house with her wasn't just an intruder. They were part of her past, and they weren't done with Heartland yet. The air between them felt tight, like it could snap at any second. Lyndy stood frozen, her eyes locked on the figure as they remained half in shadow. Her mind raced, trying to connect memories, faces, voices from the past. The way this person stood, the calm in their silence, it all felt wrong, yet familiar. Heartland had taught her to trust her instincts, and right now, every instinct told her this moment would change everything. The figure took one more step forward, just enough for the moonlight to brush their face, still not enough to fully see. Them, still not enough to be sure. Lyndy's heart ached with the weight of unanswered questions. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly, her voice steadier than she felt. The words echoed in the room, heavy with meaning. This wasn't just about fear anymore. It was about boundaries being crossed. Secrets breaking through walls meant to protect them. The figure paused, then spoke again, their voice low and controlled. "You were never supposed to be alone tonight." The words sent a chill through Lyndy's body. How did they know? How long had they been watching? Her eyes flicked toward the windows, the doors, every possible exit. She realized with a sinking feeling that this person knew the house too well. They knew Heartland. They knew her routines. A distant sound broke the tension, the faint noise of a truck engine somewhere down the road. Lyndy's breath caught. Help was close, or at least other people were. The figure heard it too. They stiffened, their calm slipping for the first time. For a moment, Lyndy thought they might rush toward her. Instead, they stepped back into the shadows, retreating toward the open window. "This isn't over," the figure said softly, "not even close." Before Lyndy could react, they were gone, disappearing into the night as quietly as they had arrived. The house fell silent once more, but it wasn't the same silence as before. It was heavier, changed. Lyndy stood alone in the dim light, her heart pounding, her hands shaking. She knew one thing now, with terrifying certainty: someone from her past had returned. Their presence had already cracked the sense of safety at Heartland. As footsteps and voices finally approached outside, Lyndy didn't move. Her eyes stayed fixed on the dark window, her thoughts racing. The question that haunted her most wasn't who had been in the house with her anymore. It was why they had come back now and what they were planning to do next. Because whatever was coming, Heartland would never be the same again.